Paulo, we saw a knife attack in London that left the city on edge, understandably. And of course, we see an increased police presence in London right now, armed police, which is not something one used to see in London. Do you think this is now, I guess, what we could call the new normal?
Well, let's hope it's not, but it looks that in the European context, it is. In Brazil, those are, rare occasions. The type of violence in Brazil that we have, it does not involve politics, does not involve racial hatred. They involve crime, common crime. Actually, the Chinese delegation, the basketball team, was caught coming from the airport in Rio to the Olympic Villa. They were caught there in a crossfire between two gangs in Rio. This is sort of the daily bread. But what worries authorities in Brazil in terms of possible terrorist attacks are not attacks against actually delegations, against athletes or the venues, but rather the type of event that we saw recently in Paris and then in Nice, where you have those random acts in public spaces. Just imagine the promenade in Nice and Copacabana Beach in Rio. They're pretty similar settings. So that is where what worries authorities. They have taken precautions, but you cannot be prepared for such kind of lunacy. Although, well, let's hope that we will not have that, and that Brazil will be able to put out an Olympics that emphasizes diversity, tolerance, and this is sort of the theme. This is the spirit of the Olympics.
Okay, let's move on to the G20 summit. It takes place in Hangzhou in China next month. Ching-Yi Chang, what kind of opportunity does the G20 summit in Hangzhou afford China to take the lead in resolving world issues?
Yes, first of all, I have to say Hangzhou is the most beautiful city. As Marco Polo says, the most splendid city in the world. And this time, Hangzhou, the host of G20, is actually, I would say, probably one of the most important one in G20 history, because I traveled to London to cover the Brexit, and also I covered the U.S. election. I can feel that kind of sentiment of protectionism, anti-free trade, all those things happening around the world. So this time, G20 is very important to discuss, to map out a way, actually, of this kind of chaotic situation to prevent protectionism and have a responsible capitalism going on, and also have the free trade going on that connect the world. So this G20 will be a very, very important one in its history.
Right, Martin, we know a lot of the big business at these summits are actually done on the sidelines. And one big meeting that will be taking place there will be a meeting between the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. What do you think is going to come out of that meeting?
Well, I can't foresee what's coming out, but obviously the West always is afraid that China and Russia is going to do their thing and maybe leave the West out. And so that should not happen. I think the West definitely is interested to keep good relationship with China. And at the same time, obviously, the relationship with Russia right now is not good. And the isolation that Russia feels right now may push Russia into closer relationship with China. I'm not an expert of Chinese-Russian relations, but that's definitely a fear in Europe that there might be too much of a coming together of China and Russia, and that the West might be in a disadvantage then.
I think something that I definitely am highly anticipating out of this, and I asked the White House actually about this, and I didn't get a clear answer, but I'm wondering what the interaction will be between President Obama and President Putin, because this comes at a time where obviously tensions between the U.S. and Russia are quite tense, and also I think the U.S. is very much involved in how the aesthetics of their relationship looks, and it was an obvious blow when the Russians were allegedly involved in a hack of the days before the DNC.
That's going to be interesting.
And
yeah.
so that exchange and the topic of cybersecurity and what the international norms and the standards are to be held to will be very interesting. I mean, for me, that's what I'm really going to be looking for in the G20 meetings.
But Putin did send a birthday wishes to President Obama yesterday.
He actually is very good with it. Yeah.
Paulo, well, there'll be one other, I guess, significant development. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has extended invitations to 5 developing countries to attend the summit. What do you make of this outreach by China to the developing world?
Well, it's a positive gesture. It's a gesture of inclusion in a world that obviously is facing a very serious moment. For Brazil specifically, it's an opportunity because in all likelihood, at the very end of this month, the process of impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff, now suspended, will be concluded with her removal. Acting President Michel Temer will become the constitutional president in Brazil and will fly to China to participate in the G20 event. It is viewed, the environment is viewed in Brazil and by some emerging countries participating as rather favorable right now because interest rates are quite low, so there is liquidity. This tends to favor emerging economies. For Brazil, it's a big opportunity because in the midst of this crisis, Brazil has to use this opportunity to send messages about, welcoming foreign investment to Brazil in order to resume economic growth, sustainable economic growth. Brazil has to open up its economy, and I think that is the message that Mr. Temer will bring with him to the G20.
Right, let's get on to our final topic tonight, and that is the United States presidential election. That's the big story here in the United States. Martin, you're a journalist for a big, huge, influential broadcast network. How do you report this story?
Oh, there's so much interest in Germany about the US elections, and in general, traditionally, Germany always has been looking to America. What is happening there? Who are going to be the next leaders? So there's a huge interest. And especially this time with Donald Trump, somebody who also has a lot of for broadcasters, it's just great. It's just there's so many aspects to broadcast about, and then this duel with Hillary Clinton now. I mean, with the conventions, there was so much interest, and obviously, this week, was very, very bad for Donald Trump. We had to broadcast almost every day something really embarrassing. And the German audience is very, very skeptical of Donald Trump, I have to say. So if they could vote, probably 85% of Germans would vote for Hillary Clinton.
Now, when Donald Trump says something like, I'm not sure whether I'm going to protect Europe, I'm not sure whether NATO is a good idea, how's that seen in a country like Germany?
Oh, that was the reason why Donald Trump is not very popular. I mean, he basically said some things about NATO allies that is just unheard of in the last 30, 40 years. It's really, obviously, Germany knows that we have to pay more for NATO defense. And German politicians are willing to do that. But to have somebody lecture them, if you don't pay, you don't get any security, that was unheard of. I mean, that was really, really almost like a big scandal. And so even though his ancestors are from Germany, so there would be ideal conditions to be popular in Germany, he has not a very good image in Germany.
He's not going to be going back to some German village soon.
Probably he's not that welcome there.
The invitation is not accepted.
Right. Yasmeen, the Democratic National Convention, there was one significant moment when we had the father of a fallen Muslim soldier address the convention. It was a very touching moment. President Obama said that Donald Trump, is unfit to be commander-in-chief after he attacked that father for making that speech at the DNC. Let's take a listen to part of what he said. Let's watch this.
The notion that he would attack a Gold Star family that had made such extraordinary sacrifices on behalf of our country. The fact that he doesn't appear to have basic knowledge around critical issues. In Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, means that he's woefully unprepared to do this job.
Now, the father of that fallen soldier, Khizr Khan, he was here in this very studio talking to us just a couple of days ago. He spoke to my colleague Elaine Reyes, and I just want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
These actions have nothing to do with Islam. Islam condemns these violence. The name of Islam had been hijacked by criminals. The definition of these terms have been hijacked and have been manipulated. And that is the reason that I implore Donald Trump and his advisors to understand, instead of condemning, join hands, because Muslims are as much victim of this terrorism as any other place or country.
So, Yasmeen, whatever the fallout, whatever happened, the thing that Mr. Khan has done is that he's opened a conversation here about what it is like to be a Muslim in the United States, hasn't he?
He has, but I think what's worth noting is that this conversation is coming up in the middle of one of the tightest and most heated political presidential election seasons that we could really note, with two candidates that are divisive, but also have pretty high unfavorability likings. And I think that what this all breeds is a situation where the amount of rationale when having discussions about cultural issues or issues that influence your greater society is not entirely there, because the people that are very heated will have their point of view. They back what Donald Trump says and what his campaign says, and if he attacks this family, the Gold Star family, then they're going to side with him because that's their candidate and that's what they want. They want him to succeed. The same goes with the other side. I think that we've seen that because when Donald Trump, or when the Khan family held up the Constitution, we've seen that same motion mimicked at Trump rallies. Yes. And so that speaks to, the conversation is and should be about the current plight, or what it means to be Muslim in America now. But it really has taken on a very political tone, and it's hard to kind of reconfigure and have the conversation that we should be having. I think if we reassess in maybe 6 months, then maybe we can have a conversation about what it means to be Muslim American. And this means that maybe some of our Muslim American lawmakers, and we have them in Congress, should step up and say, this is the face of Muslim Americans. And I think the onus should be on the Muslim American families to say, we're taking back the narrative. Right. This is not, because the loudest voice is always the one that gets the attention, and unfortunately for a lot of Muslim Americans, the loudest voices are the ones that don't speak for Islam, and that's the problem. It's a PR problem. Unfortunately, this is a conversation I think we should have post-election, because right now is not the time.
Okay, we're running out of time. Let me go to Paulo. Paulo, what do you make of this election? Because one of the other significant things we've seen here, as we see these two candidates emerge, is that they both have very high unfavorability ratings.
Yes, this is what, after 16 candidates on the Republican side, and obviously Hillary Clinton always dominant on the Democratic side, you have two candidates that compete really for rejection rates among Americans. Now, as far as the election, the reactions in Brazil and in Latin America are about the same. Actually, the foreign minister of Brazil, José Serra, went as far as saying this week that the election of Donald Trump as president of the United States simply cannot happen. Whether he should have said that is a matter of debate, but that is the sentiment, and I believe that is the sentiment in many capitals and cities around Latin America. Donald Trump is someone that you cannot easily recognize as in the political spectrum in the United States. Hillary Clinton, on the contrary, is someone that's very well known in the region.
Right, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for being with us.